The first filter I'm going to talk about is kind of not really a filter, to be perfectly honest with you. You'll notice that if I click on any video clip, that there is the layouter or the layout tool sitting on it. This was basically done because of the fact that it kind of sat by itself and you had to right click on a clip in earlier versions of Edius and use it. And the layout tool was, I'm not going to say worthless, but it was not my tool of choice. And the reason being is back in the day, it was just static. You could crop something, but the whole thing was cropped, the entire clip. You could, kind of shrink something down, but that's all you could do. You couldn't resize it. You couldn't do anything. So there was no keyframer or anything. And so many people really basically never used the layout tool, and all the way up, I would say probably to 4 or 4.5, completely and totally ignored it and didn't even know it was there. However, the layout tool, starting in version 6, has become a very, very powerful tool. You can do simple things with it all the way up to some complex movements. So the first thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to hit the keyboard shortcut Control-G to get rid of my time code up there so we can kind of see the video a little bit better. Now you'll notice in this shot right here, and I'm going to go ahead and silence the audio here because we really don't need to hear the audio to work on these filters. But you'll notice that as I'm playing this shot, it's fairly static. It's not sitting on a tripod by any means, but it's a very static shot right there. I want some movement. I want to have the viewer's eye to be able to train on something to keep going. So, since I don't have to go up into the effect palette to get the layouter, I just have to select the clip and then double click on the layouter to bring it up. Now, right here is the layout tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and move it over a tad bit. Once again, we don't have a whole lot of room here on this screen. But I'm going to kind of move it over here to a certain extent. And then what I'm going to do is a very, very simple thing. I'm going to make sure, now anytime you work with keyframes, you've just got to make sure that you pull all the way over to where you really want to start this out. And then I'm going to just hit the checkbox where it says layouter right down here, which checks all of them. And then, this is a new feature in 6.5. If I double click up here, it adds keyframes automatically to everything that's checked. So now this is telling me that I'm starting right here at the very first frame with it full frame. And then, very simply, I'm going to pull my controller all the way down to the end here. And then all I'm going to do is just size it by pulling on one of the nodes right here. I'm going to increase the size on it. I'm going to kind of keep the pump house in the middle of the shot right there. And you'll notice that these keyframes are already created. Now, this is one of the things I absolutely love in Edius. When you start and you change things, the keyframes that need to be added are automatically added. So I don't have to go in and say, okay, I need to change the stretch, the position, and all that. I can just come in here and just manipulate it right here in the window and then select OK, and let's watch and see how it works. Oh, I was at the end of that clip, so let me get to the beginning of it. And now you can see we have a clip here that looks like that I did a very, very slow zoom in on the pump house while that particular shot is there. And it was very simply done. I just started the layouter, turned on the keyframer, added keyframes at the beginning, pulled the controller to the end, and then sized the video. And that's all I really needed to do. But what if I wanted to do something a little more complex? Now, obviously, I would never really do this on a shot like this, but since we're sitting here training, it really doesn't matter that much. But I'm going to go ahead and click on my good friend Greg here, who's explaining. I'm going to double click on the layouter right here, and I want you to notice now that I was working in 2D before. And inside of 2D, I can stretch, I can, if I want to, be able to rotate if I want to do that. But I also have the ability to do 3D. Now, one other thing that I want you to see here before I go into the 3D is that I'm also able to crop. So I can come in if I wanted to and just kind of crop him, and then I could resize him. As you can see, that turned black. But what I want to do is I want to transform, and I want to do 3D. And I want to give you kind of an idea of how this actually works. And the reason being is because there's a lot of power inside of this keyframer that people don't really use that much. First off, what I'm going to do is once again turn on the layouter. I'm just going to double click up here to add all these keyframes right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically shrink this down just by grabbing one of the nodes. And then I'm going to pull it off to the side to where we cannot see it on, well, we can see it on the screen, so I want to pull it just a tad bit more. And then what I'm going to do is that I want to come down to this point right here, and I'm going to resize it somewhat and get it to this point, bring it back into the center where it's right here. And I want you to notice that over here, I can do source crop, anchors, stretching, rotate, even stereoscopic, and do edges and drop shadows and everything else, and have complete and total control. I'm doing this by mouse, but I want you to see that you have complete and total control of each one of these things that I could be doing, to where you could put numeric values in if you wanted to and make it very, very exact. But once again, notice that this changed right here. And then from there to here, down to the end, I'm going to size it up to its complete size. And I'm going to grab, see this right here? This is our 3D. And I can grab this to be able to work it this way a little bit. I can grab this one to turn it this way a little bit. I can grab this node to turn it this way a little bit. You have complete control over the 3D in this. And now, as you can see, different keyframes have been created through stretch and rotate and whatnot. That position really didn't change. It was in the same position, but it just grew. Now, if I play this, you'll see that it comes out, kind of stops right there, and then goes into my 3D space while it's working. Okay, so there's my shot right there of being able to work with that. But what if I wanted it to move a little bit differently than I did before? Now, I could come in and grab keyframes by drawing a box around them. So I'm going to come in and grab all keyframes, and what I'm going to do is change them from basically linear, and I'm going to be able to go in and do some curving to it if I want to. So basically, when I come in and do this, you'll see that I have a lot of power here, that each one of these things I can come in, I can sit there and take a look at it, I can really crank it if I wanted to crank it and have it kind of move around. So basically, I'm not stuck with just simple things of being able to do here, but if I do this, and then I play it, let me just grab it and bring it over here. Now you can see that I kind of swooped in into my middle part right there, and I was able to then finish it off. And so please know in this layout tool that you have a lot of power inside of this layout tool. I mean a ton of power. But I'm going to bring it out a little bit larger here so we can see down here in the keyframer a tad bit. But don't get faked out into thinking that, oh, gee whiz, all I can really do here is just say, I'm going to make it a little bit larger, make it a little bit smaller. Because each one of these, if you'll notice, if I hit the down arrow and then hit the down arrow again, each one of these has a control that allows you to be able to do very, very complex moves, just like I did right there. So that is basically the layout tool.